Welcome, everybody, to the Hustle Pod on a Tuesday. And we are only a matter of days into bowl season, 3 days in. As a matter of fact, there were no bowls on Sunday, obviously, but we had a full slate Saturday, and then we had the famous Toastery Bowl on Monday. And here to help me break these games down, what we've got this week, my good friend and yours, Adam Trigger. Trig, my wife tells me I say this every year, but I am ready to say it right here, right now. I've never seen a bowl season like this before. I need help. I think the people need help. I've been very, very conservative. I only have had one bowl play so far. It was a money line parlay that went up. It went up in flames. I know you were smart and went against my alma mater, or you backed my alma mater, pardon me, where I faded them like a turncoat that I am. That didn't work out for me. It worked out for you. But we are here to discuss bowl season and what the heck is going on and help the people pick some winners from now until January 1st. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'll be doing really great, Brian. If the Hampton Pirates hold on, I have a lead at the time we are filming this on a midday college basketball game. Why there's not more of that, I'm not sure. I feel like they should have a lot more midday college hoops. You got 362 teams in the country to choose from. Someone should be playing in the middle of the day. But I digress there. We're talking about college bowls today. I did have Ohio over the weekend. And, it's kind of like how I've approached bowl season. So I'm with you. I've only had one play. I think this is NFL preseason. I really honestly believe that. College bowl season has become NFL preseason. You have to take your handicap with a grain of salt because you have to be able to apply the information, and you almost need to weigh the information out more than your handicap in many cases, and then decide if you want to just bet on info, if you want to bet against what your handicap would be if teams were at full strength. It's very challenging, and I really do feel like it's like a lot of stuff has to line up similar. It feels a lot like NFL preseason where you're just trying to get info and then see if it's something you want to like put your money on, or some of this stuff is going to move. It doesn't necessarily mean you want your money there, but it's very challenging.
We will get to the $20,000 question in just a moment, but a reminder first. It is $2 Customer Appreciation Tuesday at wagertalk.com. My best bet currently available at my page, wt.buzz/BP. Best bet for the day, just $2. No coupon code needed. Trig will be having a $2 play as well. He has informed me before the show, so head on over to his page, wt.buzz/AT, of course. And again, just $2. That is a site-wide deal. Every handicapper at Wager Talk, I think, basically is participating today. So lots of winners for only $2. What a way to get on board. Okay, college football. Back to the bowls. I joked that I apparently, according to my wife, yell every year. I've never seen a bowl season like this before, but you hit on something, Trig. And I remember last week you said something about I think it was last week on this show. We do a lot of shows together. I can't remember exactly which one it was. I think it was this one, though, where the odds makers have been ultra aggressive in moving these numbers based on news, and they certainly have. So my question to you, we have seen teams that got steamed based on news. Georgia Southern against Ohio. Ohio had its top 2 quarterbacks, top 2 running backs, top 2 receivers out, its starting linebacker out. That number, Georgia Southern took all the money. They lose outright. Miami of Ohio was down to its 3rd string quarterback because Avion Smith transferred out. They covered the spread. And then anyone who had Old Dominion, I need not remind you what happened yesterday afternoon in the famous Toastery Bowl. The first ever famous Toastery Bowl was one to remember as Old Dominion gagged. And it was announced, officially a couple hours before kickoff, that Western Kentucky was without 60% of its linemen on both sides of the ball. They were supposed to be without the top 2 quarterbacks, but the backup ended up playing. And Western Kentucky wins despite that line moving completely in the other direction. So, Trig, my question is this. The last 2 years in the bowls especially, we have seen when teams take money. It's just follow the line move, right? There have been games, I'm not going to lie, that I bet personally that I've given out. I got in front of the line move, thankfully, where I'm just like, well, everyone's betting this team. I guess I should too. I've done that the last 2 years. And that was the way to be profitable. This year, though, back to my original point, the odds makers have been very aggressive. Do we think it's kind of like an odds maker's revenge? It's setting up for that this year, where if you're betting strictly based on this news, like, oh, all these opt-outs and transfer portal stuff, you're already late to the game, man, at this stage.
Yeah, so the last 2 years, it's really there hasn't been much punch back, right? Like hasn't been much punching back at the market. It's mostly been, and that's why the books have not done well in the bowls the last couple of years, because what's happened really the last 2 years, it's info comes in, sharp guys get it, they play it at a certain number. Then the betting public starts to pile on and steam it with other sharp guys that say, okay, well, you know what, I can still take this at this number because I know it's going to move further and further. And all of it's like these games have been winning at every number. Now, I'm not talking about this season. I'm going back to the last couple of years where it's like Western Michigan, Nevada is one that I always have off the top of my head. It literally opened. This is like, I think last year, bowl game opened Western Michigan +6. It went off Western Michigan +7 and they won or -7 and they won by 40. I mean, there's numerous examples of it's like you just play at any number and it gets there. Now, so it makes sense, right? Because you know what? Like the books, listen, this is college bowl season, college bowl games. This isn't like getting info on Holy Cross Quinnipiac in college basketball, right? Like all the books they're getting this info as you're getting it, before you're getting it. And then it's like, you just have to decide how quickly you're going to jump in, because like their tolerance for like moving a number may vary. So like I'll give you a perfect example. This is a great example. And this is a bet that I made for this bowl season. I bet Missouri right when the lines came up. CT, our good friend CT Bets, always getting good info. Him and I kind of were chatting and decided that this was a game where Ohio State was going to have a ton of opt-outs. It made sense that Missouri was going to be super motivated. This is like a big spot for them, and they have a lot of guys back. So I said, you know what? I like that sort of profile. I'm going to jump in now, knowing that I will probably have a good number. Like if I want to, I can probably just come back and go for a middle with Ohio State. I haven't done that much this season. I didn't want to get stuck with a bunch of like quote unquote good numbers where I then kind of ended up liking the other side. Ohio's kind of a good example for that. Early on, I kind of, I looked at the news and I said, okay, this might move. I probably agreed with you a couple of weeks ago, but then game day came around and I was like, man, Ohio +3 seems pretty fair, all things considered here. Thinking that like if their offense can overcome a couple guys out, they'll be right in this game. And so that's kind of the approach I'm taking. So I do have Missouri locked in. That's one of my 4% plays, but I have it at 2.5. I don't know. Maybe I will come back with Ohio State as time gets closer, but it really is like you kind of have to take, it's got to be like case by case basis. That's at least how I'm approaching it. I'm going to do more punching back this year late, because I do think the books are moving it so aggressively that there's going to be some situations where you can come back on the other side and get a very good situation for yourself.
Yeah, I jumped in on Missouri as well, and I'm now kind of wondering, based on how we've seen some of these first bowl games go, it's like, are we all overreacting to the Ohio State personnel news?
Brian, I want to throw a question to you real quick. Like, the overreaction is all the people opting out for Ohio State. Kyle McCord transfers. Was Ohio State selling themselves short all year, not playing Devin Brown? See the better quarterback? They might have the better quarterback on the field. He's more of an athlete, right? He's a better athlete than McCord was. So those are all things that you have to start to look at. And then if you can find that underlying stuff that the books aren't paying attention to, that's where you can go against the market a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, Kyle McCord wasn't very good. I mean, in all due respect, he landed at Syracuse. Is where he's going to end up. But I mean, look, within the state, I'm obviously in Ohio, within state borders, nobody was really sad to see Kyle McCord go. And it's interesting talking about another Ohio team, Miami of Ohio, who already has covered this bowl season, right? You know the MAC, I know the MAC. Those who know the MAC know Avion Smith was not a great passer. So and obviously Miami benefited because they have a great defense from that game being played in a monsoon. My God, I mean, there was 13 fumbles in that game. It was the most in a college football game in, I believe, 60 years, if I remember watching the telecast. So it's really interesting because at the top you talked about, like, how do you want to handicap these games? Are you going to go strictly off the news? Are you going to go off your number? I'm going to tell the people this. And when I say I've never seen a bowl season like this, man, I'm serious, because in years past, these numbers haven't gotten like what the closing line, what the number is relative to my power rating hasn't gotten wonky until like game day. But right now, as we're recording this on Tuesday, December 19th, there are like 10 bowl games where the current spread is off by like 10 points from what I'd make it if it was a regular season game based on opt-outs and transfer portals. And what I'm doing based on what I've seen is I'm waiting now and I'm looking at those matchups. I'm like, hey, I know the news ain't great for this team and the market's moved heavily against them, but can I come in on game day and take them with an incredible number? Looking forward, some of these games, Duke, no one wants to bet Duke against Troy. No one. The coach left, Mike Elko left, Riley Leonard's going to South Bend to be quarterback. He was hurt anyway on a neutral field if that game was played 2 months ago. They're favored. And Missouri and Ohio State. It's a similar thing, right? What's Ohio State favored over Missouri if that game was played in Columbus?
Well, absolutely. That's why I kind of like prefaced it and even put in the analysis like, hey, I'm trying to, if you got late to the party here, maybe wait on this one because like, you know what I mean? I don't want you to take a bad number with Missouri and then have me come back on the other side. Like that was a strictly a numbers play where I knew I was going to have a month to think about it. Right. Like, and that's what happens too. I'm with you, Brian. Like last year, I burned myself a couple times by jumping the gun on certain games. Baylor Air Force comes to mind last year. CT and I, we bet Baylor too soon. Our info wasn't super accurate. And by game day, like it was clear that Baylor was not, they didn't have as many people. Air Force ended up winning the game easily. So it's like, I'm with you. I'm sort of and I'll give you a 4% play here, dressed accordingly.
Yeah.
Syracuse is one of them, right?
Yes.
Syracuse is one of them where I initially, what did this open? 5.5. Syracuse was like a 4-point favorite, 5.5-point favorite, something like that. I really had no interest in laying that kind of a number with Syracuse, but it was the way I would lean in the game, just off of my just an initial handicap. And the weeks went on, and obviously the situation in Syracuse unfolds. Fran Brown comes in. We knew, but that's the other thing too. It's like I heard stuff in like other people break this game down. Oh, USF's going to be so much more motivated. The game's in Florida. Dino Babers is out. Well, first of all, I'm going to answer all those questions in pro Syracuse terms here. One, we knew Babers was out. Babers was gone weeks ago. And it wasn't a horrible goodbye for him. He had 8 good years here. The city of Syracuse, I think, is mostly appreciative of him. This is a tough place to win college football games in the ACC. Syracuse, New York, tough place to win. And the vibe around Fran Brown is really positive. Like he had a great press conference. He talked the part, Brian. Like he said all the right things. And I think there's excitement around the program. The whole defense is still there. I think that's the key. Rocky Long is still there. So it's like there's still a lot to be excited about. And this team is used to getting sent to the Pinstripe Bowl. Okay. I went to the Pinstripe Bowl last year in Yankee Stadium and well, I didn't really freeze because Ariel snuck us into the suite. We had a great time, nice and warm. But the point is, tell me these kids aren't excited to go play a football game down in Florida. I think they're going to be very excited for that. So I completely disagree that they're not motivated. Even if like Garrett Schrader doesn't play and some of these offensive guys don't play, this feels so much like Ohio from the weekend to me, where their defense is full strength. And with 3 weeks to prepare, if they can overcome some guys out on offense and game plan to score some points, I think this defense is going to take it home. So South Florida has their issues as well. They've got a couple offensive linemen that are questionable. They've given up a ton of big plays this year. So you mean to tell me that like with 3 weeks to prepare that Syracuse's coaching staff can't draw up a few home run shots that go for big gains and get them some scoring? I think if Syracuse scores a few points here, their defense is gonna take it home. This was a good defense when they were at full strength this year. And South Florida is not a great offensive team. They are deceivingly good offensive because they'll move the ball, but they fizzle out in the red zone. They don't finish drives. And a great stat that I found like yesterday when I was putting the analysis together for this game, Cuse has covered 13 of 14 as a favorite. They thrive in the favorite role. For whatever reason, when they're playing an opponent that's less than or lesser, they thrive. And I think South Florida is a less than team, than Syracuse. If these two teams were at full strength, I'd give the nod to Syracuse. And this is the same thing as Ohio, Brian. I don't think the omissions should have pushed that back to a pick. So I jumped in on Syracuse money line at -125. It's moved a little bit in my direction at this point now, so I'm happy about that. And I would still probably just take the money line and play accordingly here. I will be surprised if you don't get a big time effort from Syracuse on Thursday night.
I completely agree, and it's what we're talking about. That line is way too short. If Syracuse played South Florida last month, Syracuse is laying a much bigger number, even if the game was at a neutral site. That is, by the way, the Boca Raton Bowl played on Thursday that Trig just broke down for you. And I'm going to talk about tonight's game, the Frisco Bowl, UTSA and Marshall, because I think this is another example of what we're talking about, okay? No one is giving Marshall a chance in this game. UTSA, again, it's similar to USF, okay? The Roadrunners are 0-4 previously in bowls, including they've 0-3 the last 3 seasons. So what you're going to hear is how much more motivated they're going to be than Marshall to win this game. I'm not necessarily going to disagree with that, but can they win by this kind of margin? And Trig, it's very interesting. What have we seen over the last hour or so? This line got as high as 12.5. Circa's down to 11 right now. So we are seeing some of that buyback on Marshall, despite the fact that quarterback Cam Fancher has hit the portal. I know head coach Charles Huff had some strong thoughts on that situation, calling Fancher, quote, miserable, and we didn't have enough NIL money for him. He had to walk back that comment in the media because people got upset. I think Cam Fancher's mother got very upset with him, quite frankly. So it's Cole Pennington starting at quarterback for Marshall. That is Chad Pennington's son. Boy, do I feel old that Chad Pennington's son is in college. But look, I know the Thundering Herd have lost 6 of 8 after a 4-0 start. I know they are not good at stopping the run. I know that Frank Harris has been one of the better group of 5 quarterbacks for now, I think like the last 10 years or however long he's been in college. I think it's actually 7 to be exact. And Marshall, while they did win their bowl last year, I know they failed to cover the previous 3, all as dogs. And everyone thinks this is one of the biggest blowouts of the early bowls. However, this buyback we're seeing on Marshall has me thinking, and if Marshall covers here, then I know what I'm doing for the rest of the bowls. This game, this is not a client selection for me yet. I'm going to be with you on Syracuse, but this game I'm going to use as kind of a guiding light for the rest of the bowls. If Marshall comes in and covers here, what we have been saying and harping on all show, I think is true, that the odds makers, they moved aggressively and you're late to the party if you want to follow the steam. So I will, in what I think is going to be a low scoring game here, Trig, I would recommend taking the points with Marshall. Yes, I know Cole Pennington isn't very good. Ali, I guess, is going to play. It hasn't been announced that he's opted out yet. I mean, I know we've still got a whole afternoon to go, but, hey, like you said, with Ohio, they overcame the absences to cover. I'm not saying Marshall's going to win the game, but I think they can keep it within single digits.
Yeah, I got one comment here. Again, Brian, I've been staring at this one long and hard. I did not get to the window with it, but Marshall is the way that I started to lean when it started to hit 12 and 12.5. I got stuck with Marshall earlier this year in a spot that I absolutely loved them against James Madison, where they ended up with like 6 guys ruled out before kickoff. I think they had an illness, and all of these guys, like without any notice, like I had this locked in, and like a couple hours before kickoff, all these guys get ruled out. So it sucks for me, but whatever. But I just want to point out that they were without like 6 or 7 starters, and they played their tails off in that game. They easily could have won. It had a couple of other things gone their way. So the effort was there for that JMU game, despite being without like 7 starters. And a lot of these things come down to effort, right? Like we talk about it in NFL preseason. I'll continue to make the parallel NFL preseason to these bowls. These bowls have become truly have become exhibition games. Okay. Like they used to be exhibition games that people cared about. Like, and when I say people, I mean the teams. There was some teams really like prioritized wanting to win one. Now these are exhibition games. A lot, half the players are figuring out what their next move is. Like it's more or less, I really do think they become more or less a team building event for like the next year, a celebration of the season in some cases. And then it's like, okay, we'll play a football game as well. So as a bettor, you have to kind of like really try to read the tea leaves, figure out which teams are, prioritizing a good result and which teams are there to like celebrate their season. I think Marshall is going to, I just based on what I've seen from this team on a couple of other occasions this year, feels like they're going to show up and play hard. And if you're getting 12 and they play hard, can you ask for much more in a bowl game? I guess is what it comes down to. So I don't disagree with you. I think it'd be Marshall plus the points for me as well, or pass.
Yeah, and look, again, people are going to say, oh, Syracuse, they're not that motivated. Marshall, they're not that motivated. Guys, these are teams that won their final regular season games to get to a bowl. If they truly weren't motivated, then they would have phoned it in long distance and said, hey, we don't even want to go to a bowl game. But they won those regular season finales to get here. That makes me think that both of those teams will be motivated. Okay, one more time. It's $2 Customer Appreciation Tuesday at wagertalk.com. Head on over there right now to get those best bets. Again, just $2. My goodness. What a deal. I will continue hopefully rolling here in December. It's been a great start to the month for yours truly. Had a nice 5% winner on the Lions over the weekend. And I know Trig, you, and I believe every single person that we talk to in social circles had the Buffalo Bills on Sunday against the Cowboys. I wish they could all be that easy.
I was going to say, I feel like the same thing with the Lions. I was so nervous before both of those games. I'm like, every one of my friends is betting the Lions. Everyone on planet Earth seems to be on the Lions with me. And the same thing with the Bills. And couldn't have been easier on either one. So I cashed both of those with you, and it was a good NFL weekend. So was happy about that.
Yep. 67% last year in the bowls for yours truly. We will get rolling here starting Thursday with more bowl selections. Head over to my page again, wt.buzz/BP. He's wt.buzz/AT. And that does it for the Hustle Pod here on a Tuesday. Until next time, let's cash some winners.